having excitement in my stomach, and I almost want to pinch myself. I am like, is this really happening? Last year, I bravely left an employment that I was comfortable in, because for over 20 years working in this country and specializing as a psychologist that deals with trauma, I had an opportunity to engage with leadership at political level, the AU, looking at how we prevent violence, work with SGPV, and I was very restless in my spirit, in my soul, or in my heart, whatever you call. And the reason for that was that there was just a contradiction between what I know about trauma and how it works, and what we were doing. So after I had actually started a Center for Mental Wellness and Leadership, Oprah Winfrey, not Dr. Bruce, produced this book. You don't understand. I was screaming. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. Because I've been saying to our country, the detriment of South Africa is gonna be ignoring our mindset and how broken we are. That the intangible influences the tangible.
Yes.
But for that time, I mean, most people were not getting it. So what they did was, they took everything that we've learned for the past 20 years, globally, I'm saying globally now, the global world is understanding this. And they're saying that the reason we are not achieving the ESG goals, the developmental goals, the peace building goals, yes, Norma, the transitional goals, is because we've been asking the wrong questions. And our study of neuropsychology says the question we should ask is, what happened to you? Because what happened to you, which is trauma, impacts everything. Everything. So I will touch a bit. I mean, Norma, she's amazing, hey? Yeah, her analysis, I won't even talk about this because she said it. So for me, I think the penny dropped when Umama and who was then in the UN Women when we were releasing our research, when I was at CSVR in 2017, which says the crisis of SGPV in South Africa. She talked about the paradox of SGPV, where she was like, guys, we don't understand. You go to the UN, South Africa ticks. Hey, they're like, guys, you've got the right laws. You've got the right institutions. You have a whole department dedicated to working with women. We have here donors. I mean, I can see about 4 or 5 who have left their comfortable spaces and said, we're gonna come here and listen to SGPV. We have a whole president who has actually talked about SGPV. We have a whole NSP. By the way, we have the chair of the NSP Pillar 4 here with us. Cesar, thank you for being here. We have everything, we tick the box. But when you look at the stats, and Unoma has looked at it, we have 5 times the stats compared to the global stats. Like, what's happening in South Africa? Like, there is something that we are missing. And for me, as a psychologist that has worked for 20 years here in South Africa, 22 years now, I'm on. We are... Did I just say that out loud? I've been then saying that part of the reason is that we've really not understood how broken we are as a society. And we are not aligning our interventions with what the studies are actually showing. The field of trauma is growing so quickly because we are learning more and more that what is happening here and happening here influences everything. Everything, literally. But in South Africa, we keep on saying, no. Let's do bread and butter issues. So when I found someone like Sisfix who got it and said, Namfundo, this thing of yours makes sense, let us go and do it. And when I realized that it actually works, and that's why we said, let us be here, let us show the sector and donors that it works. We've got practical examples of the work we've done over the last year. We've gone to communities, and it's actually been confirmed for me. I always say when we work in these communities, we're in KZN with Mama Ashantiwa, we went to Lusikisik. I say to people, guys, I knew we were broken, but I didn't know we were broken. It is bad. It is. Sisfix, we were doing work with a boy child in KZN, and we had one of the boys in a group standing up saying, Sis Nomfundo, I was like, what can I do, my boy? Ati mina, uma ngingagenza umama, ngizoba right. the level of hatred and revenge within our boy children. I was so scared. And I think we have to wake up as a society. Sorry, I can be passionate about this thing, so let me come back. So this is what the president said. And when we were Besimwaba Umama Uwini Madikizela Mandela, and I remember jumping up saying, finally, I think the penny is gonna drop in our country. If our president, the most senior citizen in South Africa, says this, then maybe we will get it. He said, I actually literally wrote it down. He said, we must also recognize our wounds as a nation. We must acknowledge that we are a society that is hurting, damaged by our past, numbed by our present, and hesitant about our future. Look at the last one. This may explain why we are so easily prone to anger and violence. Not from a psychologist, from a president sitting there and talking about this. If this is not a wake-up call for us as a country, then I don't know what should be. So I do, if you've been in my sessions, and of course, okay, they said, man, reduce it quickly. I won't go too deep, but I do want to touch on the neuropsychology of the brain so that you understand what we know as psychologists that work with trauma and why this work is important. But we usually, when we do the interventions that Old Mutual Foundation is supporting us with, we go in depth. Princess, we just come from there over the weekend. Where Princess is saying, eh? Yeah. So the stuff that we learn about the brain, let's just get into our brains, which are really, really amazing, is that the brain is organized in hierarchy. You've got the lowest structure, which is your medulla oblongata, which just is about your sleep, you wake up. Actually, I get surprised that when I train people most of the time about the brain structure, and I try to talk about the limbic system in South Africa, almost everyone says medulla oblongata. And I'm just like, they robbed us. They robbed us. They have taught us about the lowest structure of the brain. That just makes you sleep and wake up. That was the Bantu education. Guys, literally everybody, medulla oblongata is no food. But that is not the most important structure of the brain. The highest, most executive structure of your brain, I call it your board of directors. Mrs. Master Rame just left now and we're like, she's gone to the board meeting. That's where the decisions are made. The part that is responsible for your executive functioning is your cerebral cortex that is put in there. It is the one when we are saying we're doing GBV. When you are saying that you are investing in funding, you expect that those organizations are working from here. The leaders are working from here. When we talk to our men, Reverend, and say, please don't commit violence, we are talking to this. Everything we are trying to talk to this, right? I don't have time to describe the structure in details, but that's just what you need. But then, at a lower level is the limbic system that is responsible for your emotions, right? It holds your emotional memory, it holds how you relay information, but the most important structure, I wish I had a pointer, is this small thing that is like green, the amygdala. So everyone I train now knows, I said, guys, stretch medulla oblongata, amygdala. That's what you need to know, right? What the amygdala does, and that's why it's so important, the amygdala registers trauma and it stores that memory. Now here's the crisis. If you do not heal, the amygdala tells you you are in trouble and you are in challenge, you are under threat. And all it knows to do, amygdala, is to fight, which is aggression, violence, GBV, is to freeze, right? Guys, South African stats shows that we've had 95% increase of suicide in our country amongst young black men. We have young men whose amygdala is activated and the only way out for them is death. That is a freeze response to people who don't know how to deal with their pain. Or you have a flight response. I don't know. Is there anyone who wants to quit their jobs now? Maybe the amygdala is activated. Or you want to run. I know with my children, I just want to run. Hey? I'm like, yo, my amygdala is activated. I'm raising teenagers. But all these are the response of the amygdala. Now, and then this is the most important part, okay, and then I can go because I really want psychology. Now, the reason why this is important and what we are finding from trauma, and this is what is critical, is the whole concept of triggering. So when I have a memory of trauma stored in my amygdala, anything, Caesar, it can be your spectacles that remind me of my mother. It can be sight, it can be what you hear. Anything that reminds you of unresolved trauma. This is what it does. It activates your amygdala. Sure. Now here's the thing. When your amygdala is activated, look at this. When your amygdala is activated, your cortex is deactivated. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. Yeah. Your capacity to use your executive function. The cortex is what makes us different from animals. It's what makes us process things. Your capacity to do this. One type of violence that is directly linked with later violence is exposure to domestic violence. We have men that are leading families, but when they feel disrespected, all of a sudden, their cortex gets deactivated and their amygdala is activated. When you think you are talking to a man and you are talking to a 10-year-old, and they don't even have the capacity to hear you. There you go. Yeah? So, we don't have enough time. But what we know from the work we've done is this trauma. So most of the theory talks about how it is personal. So we do like Fix knows, we do rivers of life wherever we train. We ask people, we've been amazed. Maybe Fix, we need to record some of these stories, right? From the women to the youth to the matriculants, the stories that we are hearing. But for me, why it's so important in South Africa, globally, as I said, there's a recognition that this is the work that must happen. It's because the trauma is also collective. Norma talked about it. Norma talked about the collective trauma of our history and what has happened to women and how they were disrespected. So collectively, as a society, our amygdalas get activated. It is also historical. So we are learning from epigenetics that you store within your DNA. Yes. So I want to talk to women today because we are celebrating ourselves. Some of us even have sons and daughters. If you do not heal, you will transfer the trauma to the next generation. And they will store it in their DNA. We have a generation of young men who don't even know. I mean, my son is 21. And I know the history of his family. And I can see. He doesn't even know why he's agitated and anxious. But in his DNA, he stores his father's unresolved trauma, his grandfather's unresolved trauma. How are we going to heal if we do not deal with this? These men don't even know why they hate you, because they have the pain of disrespect, and then when they see you, it gets activated. It is transgenerational. It is transgenerational. We transfer it to the next generation. But finally, I want to talk to leaders here. Because almost everyone here is an executive or a leader. We're really honored to have you. One thing that happened to me when I was a director used to surprise me. When people wanted to talk about promotions, what people would just come in, hi, Nufunda, how are you? I'm like, okay, now I'm fine. Can you please talk about promotion? I think I've really done good work. Here's the list. Yeah, and give the fact, I know the systems. And black women will come. They won't even enter the door. They'll be like, Sis Nofundo, how are you? I'm like, no, I'm fine. And I wouldn't, it was like there was a physical barrier that stopped them from coming. So I started making it my mission, and that's why I have so much respect for Sis Fix. Because she doesn't say it, it's not her told story, but she does her work through transformation and transforming the wounding for black women. Yes. So I started working with some of these black women, but what I realized, guys, is that part of our trauma was that we were punished as black women for crossing the line. So we feel that even just crossing the physical line is in our DNA. We cannot cross that line. So we have leaders who think, I would think, well, I mean, we've got great policies. I don't understand what these people are doing because the policies are great. No, your policies are implemented in a wounded context with the wounded people. So unless you look at the trauma to transform the context, I want to talk to funders that are funding black women, guys. I told funders, I said, it is irresponsible of me, to make anyone a leader in South Africa and not ensure that they've got support, because they are leading in a wounded context. We are running systems that were implemented against black women. And in our hands as the current leaders, black women, most black women will say, now we are talking to ourselves again. Most black women will say, my greatest pain has been in the hand of another black woman. Not because we are bad, but because we are broken, the system is broken, and we'll repeat the same brokenness. So I'm just going to close. Né? So what is the implication? So what I say then is that implication for SGPV. When I think about the work, the first one is the interventions themselves. So it's the plant that you want to plant. I think we need to think differently how we do the work. How do we work with men? How do we work with other groupings? We need to really look at that. But also, this is what we do. We are like a people that take and say, Sis Babs, I know you like seed work. You say, I've got this exciting seed. I'm going to fund you to do this great work. And then we take this seed, and then we plant it in a soil, and we're like, okay, it's gonna work. But what happens? When the soil is toxic, no matter how brilliant your intervention is, it is going to destroy that which you are trying to do. And that is what we are saying. The reason we have the paradox is because the wounded context of South Africa that we have ignored is chowing our strategy, is chowing our interventions, is chowing the very people that are supposed to do the work. We were saying we trained 50 social workers, all of them left their work and came for training. And I was like, so these are the people that are supposed to do the work. I just want to acknowledge DSD, because we're really DSD national. They are the ones who said, guys, stand still. They told them to stand still, and all of them came. The brokenness that those social workers had, their own trauma, the SGPV, but also the trauma of fearing for their own lives. So my question is, you have these brilliant people that are supposed to do the work, but they are broken. So you invest all this money, how are they going to do the work? Huh? So we think that this will just happen just because we've got the seed. So my argument is, and then I'm closing, Sissy, is that we can do all we can, but unless we transform the wound, we will get to this paradox that we're talking about. And I want to close quickly, because most of the time people think when we talk about trauma, we mean everyone must go to therapy. That is why with Old Mutual, we talk about infusing trauma transforming. When you said to me, when you say you infuse trauma, it's like you are increasing more trauma. She was like, maybe let's talk about infusing trauma transforming, because we really want to transform the trauma.
Yes.
So you do things like this, work with princesses that are already saying we want to do the work, and Princess Tepi is here, and you've got 30 princesses saying we want to make a difference in rural community. So help these princesses to deal with their own traumas. Empower them to integrate trauma in their work. SGPV combat team, they are already doing the work, but let me tell you, we also have Utresi here of the Mental Wellness Initiative, where they are trying to have organizations that work with psychosocial support to work together. But let me tell you, I've been in South Africa for the past 20 years, worked in the NGO sector. A lot of collective initiatives get destroyed. Because of what? Amanxeba. If we don't heal our wounds, we will bleed on the things that we love. So they are, the NSP itself, Sister Voltaire has to amazing people. If we're gonna try to harness collective effort, let us heal each other so that our wounds don't stand in the way of the work that we're trying to do. NSP, the boy-child work, we've seen this. Go and work with the boys. So we've got kings that say, we want to work with these boys and teach them how to be men. Ask for a one day with those kings so that you can talk with these men around how to transform toxic masculinities. Again, I'm trying to show that trauma work is not just about therapy. I'm not saying go and invest in therapy. There's still a role of therapy, but infuse it in what you are already doing and begin to transform it. The family work that we're doing, and finally, I do want to end with this because most of you here are leaders, executive directors, leaders in NGOs, leaders in business, leaders in government, leaders in corporate. We've got to change the soil in which we're doing the work.
Yes.
If I was going to go around here and ask you, as the women here who look so beautiful, by the way, and ask you stories of what it has taken for you to be where you are, you will be amazed. Because the system breaks us. People think that, just because we have it on paper, it's okay. So some of the things you can do, leadership coaching and mentorship for your women leaders, right? I did this for myself. look at how I do this also with organization, transforming organizational culture and organizational climate. Staff burnout and self-care. I don't know how many of you do this work. And the COVID actually shows that so many people are burnt out. You don't even have a human force. You have a human force, but you have no human capital. Because your people are too broken to do the work. Can we talk about operations? Can we talk, I know D from what we tried is that side operations. Can we talk about performance appraisals? Policies, systems, these things, if they are taken out of the context of wounding, can actually wound a lot of organizations. So if you are donors and you support NGOs, can you help them to have systems that actually promote healing rather than try and wound women themselves? And finally, can we have EWP? So I think in conclusion, I want to say, what happened to you? Because it affects everything. Thank you.